On May 6, 1954, a guy named Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile for the first time in history. For decades, people had been chasing this, and there was a lot of people out there who thought this was impossible, yet he did it. And it wasn't soon after somebody broke his record. Now, I have no doubt there's going to be some naysayers out there who don't believe that we can teach an entire semester's worth of college Arabic conversation in 2 days, in basically 4.5 hours, but we did.
So at the end of 2019, as the pandemic was starting to get around the globe, a friend of mine had called me up, said he was thinking about maybe studying Arabic again. He had previously studied. He was thinking about taking some lessons, so I offered him some free lessons, really because I wanted to try out some of these ideas, some of these theories I'd had, this idea of utilizing a living story, i.e. scenario-based training, to teach Arabic. And this story revolves around somebody going to the Middle East basically virtually. And when he got done, he said, "I wish I'd had this before." Well, that was pretty positive. So we ended up getting a number of volunteers, a number of test subjects, guinea pigs, if you will, and we put them through a 4-day course. It was 50 minutes per day, and we asked them to study approximately 10 minutes a day on their own, which wasn't much, but turns out it was enough. And at the end of this, on the 5th day, we actually tested them out. And they were able to learn between 25 and 45 words and hold between a 10 and 15-minute conversation in Arabic, which really basically equals out to an entire semester's worth of Arabic conversation. You know, what you'd learn if you went to an average university or college and took Arabic 101. Obviously, there are some colleges that teach more and some teach less. We know of one that doesn't teach any conversation in the very first semester. But for ours, I based it on what I've seen with other students. I've based it on my own experiences. And yeah, we were able to teach, and the student was able to learn an entire semester in a 4-day period in less than 4.5 hours. Well, we were super happy with this. We did a couple more test runs, tweaked things just a little bit, and then we thought, well, if we can do it in 4 days, can we teach an entire semester's worth of Arabic conversation in a 1-day program? And at the time, the way we did it, the answer, unfortunately, turned out to be basically a no. We ran a test subject through the program. He made it about 3.5 hours, and his brain was absolutely mush. When we tested him out, I think he only could speak like between 4 and 6 minutes that day. So we needed to figure out what mistakes we made. And after a few months, we decided, first off, there's only so much Arabic that a person can handle at a time. So instead of, working 50 minutes long every single time with like a 10-minute break, we knew in the future we'd have to probably break this up a little bit more. The other thing that this student didn't get was a sleep cycle, which was interesting because it was either a day or 2 days later I contacted him and asked if he'd speak Arabic with me just for a few minutes to see what he retained. And sure enough, he actually retained about the same amount that he'd had before, potentially even a little bit more, although we really don't have a way of quantifying that. So we now knew that we need to do less Arabic, more breaks, and definitely have a good sleep cycle between some of the classes at least, which is, I think, one of the reasons that the 4-day program works so well. Well, couldn't really do it in 1 day, but could we perhaps do it in 2 days? Could we teach an entire semester's worth of Arabic in 2 days? And we thought this one was going to work out a little bit better.
Well, we got lucky and we found ourselves a very suitable test subject. Our volunteer was approximately 40 years old. He was ex-military. He was currently studying for his master's degree, and most importantly, only knew 2 words of Arabic total. So now that we had a volunteer, we needed to move on. We set up 2 days, Sunday and Monday, which basically we had pretty much both days of our schedules were clear. And we wanted to use the living story combined with repetition and make sure that we had enough breaks in there. And we were going to give him 3 10-minute study sessions once we got done. So on Sunday, that's what we did. We started out 45 minutes. We broke for about 10 minutes. And then we actually did a writing exercise, which was, we had never done this before, just see, if we could teach him a little bit of writing, but more, it was a longer extended break. Then we gave him 10 minutes after that. So he literally had about a 30-minute break there, not doing any Arabic conversation. And then from there on, we did about 30 minutes each time. Each time we were making sure that we were pushing him until he got fatigued. And we did this simply by asking him. And also we can kind of tell when that brain starts to get too full of Arabic that, hey, it's time to cut things off. But we would actually push him another 3 to 5 minutes. Then we would take another 10 to 15-minute break. We did this until we had about 3 hours of solid training. And at that point, we told them, now for the rest of the day, spend about 10 minutes, wait a few hours, spend another 10 minutes, wait a few hours, and get some self-study and utilize flashcards. Try to, make your own sentences with what we've given you. And that's it. We didn't want him to study there for hours and hours. We simply wanted 3 10-minute study sessions. And we got 2 of them. He told us that he did give us 2 10-minute study sessions, and he did take a long break in between them. But he said the 3rd study session was actually done the morning of day number 2. So that's a Monday. We started out that day, again, about noon, and we started out with about a 40-minute conversation. We took a break, and then we actually had about another 10-minute conversation / training. And at that point, we took another 10-minute break, and then we had the test. And we were super happy. Our student, our test subject, our volunteer, was able to have approximately a 14-minute conversation in Arabic. He had a vocabulary of 40 plus words. And those are just the ones that he could recognize, he could use. That doesn't include the other ones that he could recognize, even if he maybe couldn't use them in a conversation. So literally, our volunteer learned the equivalent of a full semester of Arabic conversation in 4.5 hours over a 2-day period. Needless to say, we were, I guess, maybe a little bit stunned, but we were super happy, and we were absolutely thrilled. So what does this mean? Well, number one, utilizing the methodologies that we've discussed here throughout this short program, it means that we can take a individual who has probably average time, average language skills, and within a matter of hours, we can get them to a point that it used to probably take months to get to. In addition, we can also extend that, extend this short program, add to it and make somebody so that they're comfortable with the language, make it so that they can solve problems in the language, make it so that they can conversate in the language. And the other thing that this does is this ends up taking a large chunk of total time for somebody who's going to try to gain an intermediate or advanced understanding of the language. So the State Department says that it takes about 2,200 hours to become fluent in Arabic. And this potentially could literally shave off hundreds of those hours. And not just if you're becoming fluent, but also if you're going over to the Middle East for business, if you're going over perhaps in the military, perhaps you're working for a NGO providing care to refugees, whatever the case may be. Instead of sitting there and literally, starting a couple months in advance, which still wouldn't be a bad idea, you potentially could start the language program a week, 2 weeks in advance, and have probably more conversational skills than you're going to have by buying some commercial product, taking a couple lessons online, etc., etc. And what does the future hold? Well, like we stated, the State Department says 2,200 hours to become fluent in Arabic. I think our next goal is going to be, can we take that 2,200 hours and we slash it in half? Time will tell. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, need to contact us. Our information is at the end of this program. So thanks so much. Take care. Ma salama.